At his peak, one man controlled so much cash that his organization reportedly spent $2,000 a month just on rubber bands. Not product, not weapons. Rubber bands, to hold together stacks of money too large to count by hand. That is the scale you're dealing with when you look at the richest drug traffickers in history. How does a criminal enterprise generate wealth on a level that rivals entire nations? Start with Pablo Escobar, the most infamous name in this entire story. At the height of his power in the late 1980s, Forbes magazine listed Escobar as one of the richest men alive, with an estimated net worth around $30 billion. His Medellin cartel controlled roughly 80% of the cocaine entering the United States at one point. The money became so overwhelming that storage itself turned into a logistical problem. Escobar's organization reportedly wrote off around 10% of their cash every year, not through spending, but simply because rats and moisture destroyed money faster than it could be counted or moved. He once offered, publicly, to pay off Colombia's entire national debt in exchange for avoiding extradition to the United States. The offer was refused. He also built his own private zoo on his Hacienda Nápoles estate, importing exotic animals including hippopotamuses from Africa. Those hippos still roam parts of Colombia today, descendants of animals brought in by a man who needed somewhere to put his money as much as he needed to make it. Now consider Joaquin Guzman, known globally as El Chapo, leader of the Sinaloa cartel. Forbes estimated his net worth at around $1 billion during multiple years he appeared on their global billionaires list, making him one of the only people to be listed as a billionaire specifically due to criminal enterprise. What makes Guzman's story so remarkable isn't just the money. It's the lengths his organization went to protect it. In 2001, he escaped from a maximum security prison, reportedly hidden inside a laundry cart. In 2015, after being recaptured, he escaped again, this time through a mile-long tunnel built directly beneath his prison cell, complete with lighting, ventilation, and a modified motorcycle on rails to move through it faster. Ask yourself what kind of resources it takes to engineer an escape tunnel that's sophisticated, built undetected, beneath one of the most secure prisons in the country. Then there's Amado Carrillo Fuentes, nicknamed El Señor de los Cielos, the Lord of the Skies. He earned that name by transforming drug trafficking logistics entirely, using a fleet of Boeing 727 aircraft to move cocaine north in bulk, at a scale no one had organized quite that way before. His estimated wealth reportedly reached into the billions during his rise through the 1990s. His story ends almost as strangely as it unfolded. In 1997, Carrillo Fuentes died on an operating table during extensive plastic surgery meant to alter his appearance and evade capture. The surgeons involved in that operation were later found dead themselves, encased in concrete, a detail that has fueled speculation and documentary coverage for decades since. Griselda Blanco deserves her place in this story too. Not because her fortune matched Escobar's or Guzman's, but because of how she built it. Nicknamed La Madrina, the Godmother, or sometimes the Cocaine Godmother. Blanco was one of the earliest architects of the Miami cocaine trade in the 1970s and 1980s. At a time when the industry was almost entirely run by men, she's credited, according to numerous law enforcement accounts, with pioneering the drive-by motorcycle assassination method that later became common across organized crime. Her estimated fortune reportedly reached into the hundreds of millions of dollars during her peak years running operations between Colombia and South Florida. What connects all of these stories is a pattern that repeats across nearly every case like it. Extraordinary wealth generated in a fraction of the time it takes most legitimate fortunes to build, followed almost inevitably by capture, betrayal, or violent death. Few of these fortunes were ever fully recovered by their owners' families. Assets get seized, cash gets buried, hidden, or simply lost when the person who knew where it was ends up dead or in prison. Why does wealth built this fast so rarely translate into wealth that lasts? There's also the matter of how governments have tried to quantify what these organizations were actually worth. Colombia's cartels during the 1980s and 1990s are estimated by some economists to have generated revenue equivalent to a meaningful percentage of the entire country's gross domestic product during their peak years. That is not a company. That is closer to a shadow economy, operating in parallel to the legitimate one, employing thousands of people in roles from transportation to accounting to security, all built around a product that remains illegal in nearly every country it touches. The infrastructure required to move that much value is staggering when you break it down. Submarines built specifically for smuggling, some semi-submersible and difficult to detect by radar, capable of carrying multiple tons of product across open ocean. Entire fleets of aircraft, tunnels running beneath international borders, some spanning hundreds of feet, engineered with the same precision as legitimate mining operations. This was never small-scale crime. This was industrial-scale logistics, built and run entirely outside the law. So when you hear these numbers, 30 billion here, a billion there, hundreds of millions somewhere else, understand what they actually represent. Not simply wealth, but the scale of an entire illegal economy, hidden mostly from public view, run by people who spent as much energy avoiding detection as they did generating the fortune in the first place. Most of them lost everything in the end. Some lost their lives. The rubber bands, the hippos, the tunnels, the aircraft, all of it eventually became evidence in cases against the very people who built it. At his peak, one man spent $2,000 a month just on rubber bands to hold his cash together. Now you know why that detail says more about the scale of this world than almost any number ever could.